So in 2.4, the last part is solving a formula for a variable. And this is where you're using the undoing of your equations or your formulas to get a particular variable isolated by itself. So let's take a look at area of a rectangle. So if I have an area of a triangle, that's the length times the width. And so if I want to solve this for the length, so if I want to solve for the length, then I have to move the w to the other side of the equation. To do that, I have to look at it and say, okay, what's actually happening in this formula? Well, this is being multiplied by w. So to undo it, I'd have to divide by the w. Oops, by the w. Divide by the w. And then w divided by w is a 1. And so area divided by the width is the length. So if I knew that the area was, let's say it was 400 square inches, and I knew that the width was, let's say, 16 inches, then I could put that into my formula now. 400 inches squared divided by 16 inches equals length. Well, 16 will go into 400 25 times. And inches, which is 1, can go into inches squared 1 time. So what's 1? So you get 25 inches equal to the length. And so this is very useful, to be able to solve and take a formula and isolate one of the variables. So let's do that with the trapezoid formula. Let's say that you're going to find one of the bases. So again, trapezoid area is 1/2 times the base of one, right, plus the base of the other one times the height. And let's say we're going to solve this for A. So we have to take a look at this formula, and yeah, I see that there's adding and subtracting, and I'd like to do that, but I can't because it's got these parentheses around it. And if you think about the order of operations, I always have to do from the bottom up for the order of operations when I'm solving for something I don't have all the numbers. So the first one was, is there any adding and subtracting? Well, there is, but it's inside the parentheses, and the parentheses is the very last step. So I have to leave this. I now go to, is there any multiplication or division going on? Well, I see that the h is being multiplied by everything here. So to undo the multiplication, I'm going to divide the whole thing by h on both sides. That way h divided by h is 1. Okay, and so now I have area over h equal to 1/2 times the base, the two bases. So now I have to get rid of the 1/2. This is actually division. So the opposite of dividing by 2 is to actually multiply by 2. And so I'm going to multiply this by 2 to both sides. And so now the 2 divided by the 2 gives me 1. And so 2 times A over the H equals the base plus the area plus the other base. And I don't need the parentheses anymore because there's nothing on the outside. So now my last step is to move the B. Well, what is the B doing? Well, the B is being added to the A. So the opposite is to subtract, to actually subtract B from both sides. And so now I get 2A over H minus B equal to A. And so now I have isolated one of my bases to solving for the other side. So now I know what A base actually is. And so that gives me an insight to that. And that's how you solve that. Let's do one more, which is pretty crucial to what we will be doing down the road. And that is this equation. 9x plus the 3y is equal to 6. This is called a standard form of an equation, standard form, and so of a linear equation. So I want to, let's say I'm solving for y. I'm going to solve for the y. So to do that, I have to think of the order of operation in reverse. So I'm looking at the 9x, it's being added to the 3y, and so I'm actually going to do the opposite to move the 9x to the other side. So I'll minus 9x from both sides. Okay, and then that gives me 0 here. I can't add these together because they're not like terms, so I have to leave them as 9x plus 6. And then bring down the 3y. And now I see that the 3 is being attached to the y by multiplication, so I'm going to divide by 3, but I'm going to do it to every term. Okay, 3 divided by 3 is 1, so 1 times y is y. A negative divided by a negative is positive. 9 divided by 3 is 3x, and positive divided by negative is negative, and 6 divided by 3 is 2. And so now I've actually solved this equation for y. And this is really useful. And so there's a lot of practice that's needed in this, because it really makes you think about the order of operation and the steps rather than just remembering some kind of acronym. You basically want to know the rules really well. And so by practicing and doing the homework and doing the study guide, which I'm requiring you to do, to help you do better on tests in the future, that's really a helpful tool. So that's how you do some of these problems.